हेमा, अर्चना आ रही है?
बात नहीं हुई मेरी उससे, लेकिन आएगी वो। I didn't talk to her since morning.
You can send a reminder.
Yeah, I'll send.
You can start, Bharti.
जयो राधा माधव, जयो कुंज बिहारी, जयो राधा माधव, जयो कुंज बिहारी, जय गोपी जन वल्लभा, जयो गिरवरधारी, जयो गोपी जन वल्लभा, जयो गिरवरधारी, यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन, यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन, यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरा वनचारी, जयो राधा माधव, जयो कुंज बिहारी। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले, श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नमामि। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी, निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणी। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राधा माधव राधे, जय गौर निताय, जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान, जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय जय। हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल, जय ताई हरि बोल। जय श्री राधा श्याम सुंदर, जय श्री राम श्याम सुंदर, जय श्री श्याम सुंदर जय। हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल, गौ निताई हरि बोल। जय
हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय।
जय।
श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय।
निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरि 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 बोल।
हरि हरि हरि।
जय जय श्री राधे कृष्ण। So we'll start with our Mangalacharan. This is on page 1 in your copy of the Bhagavad Gita. You can all mute yourselves and chant along with me. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatamditam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Devi Govind Swami Niti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini. Okay, welcome everyone. Yeah, you can take the screen off. So we did Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 till verse 50, right? In our previous class. And I just want to do a little recap since we are going towards the conclusion of chapter 2. So the first half of chapter 2 for the new ones also and also for the old ones, it will be like a recap on what we have done so far. Okay. So the first 10 verses of chapter 2, verse 1 to verse 10, Arjun is expressing his further doubts and going towards surrendering to Krishna. He has asked some doubts by the end of first chapter, and then he has further doubts which unfold in chapter 2. So the first 10 verses are only dealing with that, his doubts. Okay. Then from verse 11 to verse 30, Krishna talks about Gyan Yoga, where he's telling him Uttisht. Uttisht, he tells him fight. Why? Because the soul is eternal. Because Arjun is valuing, crying, confused in compassion, but he is compassionate for the temporary body. He has no compassion for the main entity of the person. So that is why he is refraining to fight. But Krishna is telling him, fight because the soul is eternal, and real compassion is actually compassion for the soul, the main person inside the body, not for the body. So Krishna counters his compassion argument in all these verse 11 to verse 30. He completely demolishes all his compassion arguments. Then from 31 to 38, these 7 verses, Krishna talks about Karmakand. So in Karmakand, he's saying, how do you fight? Why do you fight? You fight by thinking of this fighting as doing your prescribed duties. If you do your prescribed duties, which is as per the injunctions of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, without getting overly attached, you will enjoy. You will actually be freed from the results of these actions. So you will be freed from happiness and distress both. And that is real enjoyment. So 31 to 38, he counters Arjun's enjoyment arguments. Remember how Arjun is again crying, oh, if I fight, they will die. How will I enjoy? How will I enjoy this kingdom when I kill my own family? So Krishna is saying you will actually enjoy by doing your prescribed duty. So whether it is material or spiritual, if you kill them, you will anyways enjoy the kingdom. If you get killed, you will go to the heavenly planets for having done your duty. So either ways, you are going to have yash, kirti, and also you will enjoy. So here 31 to 38, he's countering all his enjoyment arguments. And then 39 to 53 verses, Krishna talks about Nishkam Karma Yoga. Nishkam Karma Yoga means fight with detachment. The most important verse, Karmanye Vadikaraste. You are supposed to do your duty, but do not be attached to the results of your actions. So if you fight with detachment, then you will not get any sinful reactions. You accept the results of your actions, whatever they are. That is called Nishkam Karma Yoga. Then you do not get reactions of good and bad both. So in these verses 39 to 53, he counters Arjun's enjoyment argument. How will I enjoy? Okay. And then the last batch from verses 54 to 72, which is the end of chapter 2. In all these remaining verses, Krishna talks in detail. Again, he is answering further questions. Arjun asks him 4 more questions, which we are going to do today. In the 55th verse, he's asking him 4 more questions, where Krishna is then giving the answers to those from 54 to 22, where he describes the characteristics of a Sthita Pragya. So Arjun clearly asks him, who is a Sthita Pragya? Describe him to me. And he asks 4 characteristics, and Krishna then describes in detail till the 72nd verse. So this is the gist of chapter 2. Okay. Now coming to, do we have Vaishali here?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hari bol Vaishali. So
51st पढ़ूं मैं?
आप yes, 51st verse पढ़िए. Yeah.
हाँ.
So we've done till 50.
Yes.
है ना? So निष्काम कर्म योग तक हमने किया था. As we do these 5 verses today, I'm targeting to cover 51 to 55, 5 verses. There's going to be like a conclusion and revision of whatever we've done so far. So don't worry, you will get your revision. Okay, 51.
Yeah. कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम्. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead.
Can you read that translation again, please?
Sure. By thus engaging the devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth, death, and attain the state beyond all these miseries by going back to Godhead.
Yeah.
Purport भी पढ़ना है?
Purport पढ़ेंगे. I'll come to that.
Okay.
So here, Krishna is saying that if you engage in bhakti yoga, devotional service, then that is service to the Lord. Great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of all such work. And then they go back. So far, in the end, he says that they attain a state beyond all miseries. So he's indirectly telling, because so far he has not disclosed to Arjun, or he's not talking about he being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or he being Bhagwan himself. So he's indirectly telling him that you will attain a state beyond all miseries. How is that? By going back to Godhead. That's how Prabhupada has written it in a bracket. She's indirectly telling him that you will reach Vaikuntha Lok or Golok Dham if you engage in devotional service to the Lord. And the great sages and devotees have already achieved it. We already have proof in the lives of these bhaktyas, who have been leading their lives following devotional service or bhakti yoga. And to enumerate this, a very beautiful verse has been mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 58th verse. He says, Samashrita ye pada pallavam, mahat padam punya yasho murare, bhavam buddhir vatsa padam param padam, padam padam yad vipadam natesha. Translation: for one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of mukti, the ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. Parampadam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of his life. So we did the meaning of Vaikuntha. Vai means no, and Kuntha means miseries. So Vaikuntha is a place where there are no miseries. And where are we living currently? In Kuntha Lok, because it's full of miseries. And on top of that, everything is temporary, to make matters worse. So this is, if of course it is a Dukhalayam, but it is also a Shashvatam. It is also temporary. So the liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place where there are dangers at every step. And out of ignorance only, less intelligent persons try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, which is karma kand, thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. So as long as we depend on our own endeavor to achieve results and become happy, we are going to be frustrated, because there is only so much that we can do as our own endeavor. And you can see this even in the lives of everyone who does not even believe in God. You must have seen top sportsmen. Although they are brilliant at their field, at their sport, yet they know that to win or to excel in their game, they still need something more than their own practice and their own effort. So you must have seen sportsmen are very superstitious. Some people look at the sun while going. Some people wear some amulet or taweez. And some people go out at a, there is one cricketer who says that all the commodes of the toilets in the change room should be down. Their lid should be down, because he has somehow connected that with his team winning. Why is all this happening? Why are people so much into superstition? Because they know it is already there for everyone to see that you do not get results just by your own endeavor. That is why people resort to all these superstitions, because they know that you need something more in addition to your endeavor. Even doctors, every doctor will agree with this and will share his experience that despite the best of our treatment, there is still something that comes between us and the patient, and we cannot really guarantee that we will be able to save a patient, although we may be doing everything right. Why? What is that? That's something extra. This means by our own endeavor alone, we cannot achieve results or success, or we cannot guarantee success. There is something, another power that you also need to conclude your efforts. So the intelligent people and the liberated people never try to live their lives by dint of their own effort or material effort. They always rely on the will of the Lord, and they work according to his instructions, detached from the fruits of the work. And automatically then they are saved from misery. and happiness, because they are not looking forward to the result of their action. Neither are they attached to the result of that action, because they know that there is a higher will which is going to conclude this action. So they do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. The miseries of life, birth, death, old age, and disease, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So if you try to work with an attitude that I am the doer, by my planning, effort, action, and work, I will be able to achieve this result, you will be working with an I-centric attitude and mentality, that this is my work, I have to do it. But if you work without attachment to the results, then your attitude is, I am doing this because to please the Lord, by the will of the Lord, depending on the mercy of the Lord. There is a complete difference in the way you execute that work, isn't it? Even if it is something as simple as eating or something as simple as cooking, which everybody does, regardless of whether they are atheistic or theistic, Hindus or Muslims or Americans or Indians, everybody cooks and eats. Yet, those who are cooking and eating for themselves, by themselves, to enjoy themselves, are getting implicated in the sinful reactions of this basic human activity of cooking and eating. But a devotee follows the injunctions of the scriptures, the injunctions of the Bhagavad Gita, and understands his position that I am a servant here. I've not come to enjoy, but I've come to serve. And he abides by the injunctions of the Shastra and cooks to please the Lord, serves the Lord first, and then partakes of the remnants. Therefore, he will not get any reaction for this activity of eating and cooking. So he's not implicated. But all the others who are defying or leading self-centered lives are daily, just by the action of eating, getting implicated more and more in sinful reactions. Did you ever think of that? I mean, this is profound. You know, who would have thought that a simple activity of bathing, eating, and cooking could implicate you into more and more karmic reactions? Sorry about that. Yeah. So consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planets, where there is neither material, miserable life, nor the influence of time and death. Therefore, it is Sat Chit and Anand. Sat means eternal, no death. And no death means no birth. Chit, complete knowledge, no confusion, no illusion, no anxiety, because they are in complete knowledge. They don't have to be told, you are a soul, you're not this body, because 24/7, every microsecond, they are aware of this fact that they are a soul. So they always work, think, live, and behave on the level of the soul, with the mentality of the spirit soul. And Anand, automatically that leads to bliss. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. The two are related. If you know you are a servant, then automatically you know you are a servant of whom? So automatically you know your position vis-a-vis the position of the Lord. Automatically. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness, and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. Punah punah charvita charvananam. Birth again, death again, birth again, death again. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha Lok. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. So, I repeat the translation. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. And if you are not getting any results, which means you have no loans on you, which means there is nothing to repay, what happens? They become free from the cycle of birth and death, and they attain the state beyond all miseries. They are automatically transported to Vaikuntha Lok. Isn't that exciting news? So you can eat your way back home, back to Godhead. How wonderful is that? You don't have to give up eating. Nobody's saying renounce eating, fast and lead a miserable life eating just kandamul. No, that's not what Bhakti Yoga is all about. This will be further clarified. Verse number 52, Vaishali.
Yeah. Yada te moha kalilam buddhir vyatitarsyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that has to be heard.
All that is to be heard. Yeah.
Huh.
So here the important words are Shrotavasya, Shrutasya. Shrotavasya, towards all that is to be heard. Shrutasya, all that is already heard. See how the word that is being described here is a dense forest, Kalilam. So when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. This, our greatest enemy or our greatest source of doubt and confusion is actually our mind. And this mind is trapped in the dense forest of delusion. How will you get your mind out of this dense, dark forest of delusion? The mind has to find its way out. So, despite you having the best, your body having all the comforts, if your mind is not free, you are not free. You're not happy. And you can see this in the world today. People who have fame, money, power, influence are probably the unhappiest people. If this was a guarantee for success, that you already have fame, you already have influence, you have all the money that you want, and you have control over all the things that you would like to, why are you still miserable? Because their mind is trapped in the dense forest of delusion. How will you save the mind? Or how will you free the mind? There are many good examples in the lives of great devotees of the Lord, of those who become indifferent to the rituals of the Vedas simply by devotional service to the Lord. When a person factually understands Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, he naturally becomes completely indifferent to the rituals of fruitive activities. Understand that as karma kand. Even though an experienced Brahmin, Sri Madhavendra Puri, a great devotee and acharya in the line of the devotees, says, Sandhya Vandan Bhadram Astu Bhavato Bho Snana Tubhyam Namo Bho Deva Pitarascha Tarpan Vidhau Naham Kshama Kshamayatam Yatra Kvapi Nishadaya Yadava Kulottamasya Kamadvishaha Smaram Smaram Agham Haram Tadalam Manyakim Anyename. Beautiful prayers. You may never have heard these prayers before, and they are from Madhavendra Puri himself, who is an Acharya. O my prayers 3 times a day, all glory to you. O bathing, I offer my obeisances unto you. O demigods, O forefathers, demigods, Devi Devtas. O forefathers, Pitra, please excuse me for my inability to offer you my respects. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendant of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kans, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me. What is Madhavendra Puri's realization? After having written all the bhashyas and commentaries that he has written on the Vedas, this is his conclusion. He's talking about, why is he mentioning bathing? Bathing is karma kand. We are all very attached to rituals and karma kands. You know, we have to fast, we have to do this, we have to do that. We have to follow the traditions of my family. We have to go to the temple on my birthday. I have to do this, I have to do that. But if your mind is still in the dense forest of delusion, then all these activities are not going to free you from the miseries of the mind. And they will keep you away from the conclusion of these Vedas. What is the whole point of following these rituals? Because you want to conclude it, you want to reach somewhere, you want a result, right? But if we do not know the conclusion of the Vedas, then all these activities of bathing in the, going to the Ganga and bathing, sipping Ganga Jal, or whatever, pouring Ganga Jal, and doing all the pujas and tapasyas that we do, he's not disregarding them. He's giving them all respect. He's saying, I offer my obeisances unto you. Oh, my prayers, people who chant their prayers 2-3 times a day, जैसे उनकी मम्मी ने उन्हें सिखाया हुआ है या उनकी नानी ने या grandparents ने सिखाया हुआ है, people are still following all that. So he's saying, my respects to you. Oh, prayers 3 times a day. Oh, bathing, I'm supposed to be bathing twice. My respects to you. Oh, पितर, कितना सारा हमको पितरों का श्राद्ध करना होता है. Oh, Devi Devtas, so many days come of Devi Devtas. We have to do all these rituals. He's paying his respects to them. And then what is he saying? Please excuse me. Kshama kare for my inability to offer you my respects. Now, wherever I sit, I can only remember Krishna. And thereby, just simply by engaging in the worship of Krishna, in the service of Krishna, in following the words of Krishna, I can free myself from all sinful bondage. Which means, in short, he's saying, karma kand karne ki ab zarurat nahi hai once I come to nishkam karma yoga or bhakti yoga, or simply karma yoga. It is higher than karma kand. That's the conclusion. Karma kand is rituals, ritualistic activities. They are important for the ignorant to come to the level of believing in God. But once you are already firm in your position and understanding that you are a servant of the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Mukunda, then you don't need to rely on Karma Kand to progress. Simply by devotional service or Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga, you can be freed from all sinful bondage. The Vedic rites and rituals are imperative for neophytes. Neophytes are beginners. You know, the early people who have, say, KG or nursery people in spiritual life, in spiritual understanding. For them, this is important to progress. Comprehending all kinds of prayers 3 times a day, taking a bath early in the morning, offering respects to the forefathers, etc., etc., etc. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged in his transcendental loving service, one becomes indifferent to all these regulative principles. Why? Because he has already attained perfection. If one can reach the platform of understanding by service to Krishna, he has no longer to execute different types of penances and sacrifices as recommended in revealed scriptures. In fact, there was one American philosopher who concluded after reading the Rig Veda that this Rig Veda has maximum promises of sensual pleasures. It's full of karma kand, Rig Veda, full of sensual pleasures. If you do this, you can enjoy this pleasure. If you do this puja, this ritual, you can enjoy this pleasure. It's full of hundreds and hundreds of rituals, but they are all leading to what? Leading to it's for the neophytes, or for the atheistic people, or for the asuric people who have absolutely no understanding of God consciousness, to bring them, because they are so much into enjoying the pleasures of the flesh of all kinds, of these five हमारी जो पांचों इंद्रियां हैं, eyes, nose, mouth, ears, taste, they are so much into enjoying. So the Rig Veda is trying to give them enjoyment of the senses and slowly leading them to God consciousness. There is a higher power, and if you follow these rituals, then the higher power is going to give you more and more pleasure. This is for them. But people with higher intelligence, or who already have a belief in God, can bypass these ritualistic activities and straight away come to the conclusion of the Vedas, which is Ishwaraha Paramah Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karna. Where were we? Yeah. And similarly, if one has not understood that the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engages in the rituals, then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements. Shram evahi kevalam, in the Bhagavatam first canto. Sutta Goswami says this. If you are not connecting your activities to the main goal, then all your activities, how much ever hard work you have done, is shram evahi kevalam. It's just hard work. But there's no juice. You won't get any juice, or no reaction, or no fruits for that. Persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Shabda Brahma, or the range of the Ved and the Upanishad. Transcend means they cross over. How? In the previous verse from this Bhagavatam verse. The ocean of the material world is like the water contained in a calf's footprint. So you can please just imagine that we are all floating in a huge ocean, which is full of all kinds of ferocious sea animals. And dur tak we cannot see land. And there is absolutely no hope. And sometimes there are storms, sometimes there are hurricanes, and we are just constantly bobbing in that ocean. And how can you plan to cross that ocean by any of your own personal endeavors while you're already in the water? How can you build a boat or a ship, or even hope to cross that ocean or go to the other side when everybody is already floating in the water? But those who take the shelter of Mukunda, the lotus feet of Mukund, for them that great ocean suddenly shrinks. Shrinks to what size? A cow's baby's hoof. बछड़े का जो खुर है, खुर होता है, वो कितना छोटा होता है? उस खुर का जो जब वो अपने पैर को जमीन में रखता है, सॉफ्ट मड अगर होती है, तो वो वहां पे खड्डा बन जाता है, छोटा सा खड्डा बन जाता है. देखा आपने बछड़े के पांव का? उस छोटे से खड्डे में जितना पानी भर सके, उतना छोटा वो ओशन हो जाता है आपके लिए. That great ocean in which you are half drowned and you're lashing in the waves, birth after birth after birth, that huge ocean shrinks to the hoof, in the calf's footprint, shrinks to water contained in a calf's footprint, and so easy for you to cross over that ocean. मतलब एक छोटा baby भी अगर होगा, baby, newborn baby I'm talking about, he can also cross over that ocean. Isn't it? In fact, अगर आप छोटे baby को लिटा दोगे on the hoof print of that cow, is he going to drown? No. Just see the mercy of Krishna. Just see the sheer advantage of holding, catching tightly the Parampadam of Krishna. Very easily. How easily you can cross over that ocean. That ocean will shrink for you, while the others will continue to bob up and down, lash in that ocean. So that's why in the last line they are saying, the persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Shabda Brahma. What is Shabda Brahma? All the Veda and the Upanishads, that Brahma, जो ब्रह्मा ने उच्चारण किया है अपने 4 मुखों से, they go beyond that. Their understanding goes beyond all the Vedas and Upanishads. Otherwise, वो ऋग्वेद की तरह कर्मकांड में ही involve होके रह जाएंगे, and they will be like, their intelligence will be confused in the dense forest of delusion. They will not get any clarity, nor will they get answers to their questions, nor will they find a way to come out. They will be forever lost in that dense forest. Okay, Vaishali, next one.
Yeah. Shruti vipratipanna te yada sthāsyati niṣcala samadhavachala buddhi tada yogamavapsyasi. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness.
Yeah. So to say that one is in samadhi is to say that one has fully realized Krishna consciousness. This is the real meaning of samadhi. That is, one in full samadhi has realized Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. These are the 3 levels of understanding God. God has 3 stages. According to the intelligence of this whole world can be divided into these 3 parts. So one level of intelligence will take you up to the Brahman understanding of God. People more intelligent than that will come to the Paramatma understanding of God. And the most intelligent people will come to the Bhagwan understanding of God. These are the 3 characteristics or 3 aspects, 3 layers of God consciousness, of the Supreme Lord. There is one God. और इसी को ढूंढने में people get confused in this dense forest of Maya. But the one who is in samadhi, who is in Krishna consciousness, who knows the conclusion of all the Vedas, gets an understanding of all 3, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. We will do them in detail. We've already done it in the past, but for the new people, they don't need to worry. We will do the technical aspects of these 3 aspects of the Supreme Lord in detail. The highest perfection of self-realization is to understand that one is eternally the servitor of Krishna, and that one's only business is to discharge one's duties in Krishna consciousness. This is the real meaning of karmanyevadikaraste. Do all the work that has been given to you as with a sense of duty without attachment to the results. Which means, of course, how will you do your duty if you are not attached to the results? If you're a doctor, I mean, you can't just go on the operating theater. Okay, I just have to go and operate. Bacha to bacha, nahi bacha to nahi bacha. I'm not attached to the result. That is a wrong understanding of this verse, Karmanyevadikara. This is not what they're saying. Of course, you have to take responsibility and do it with the highest effort and ethics. But the point is, You are doing that duty of a doctor, if you are a doctor, with the understanding that I have been given this duty. In my role, I have been given a woman's body or a male body, and I have been entrusted this work. I've been given this education, and I've been given this family and these children. So I am going to do all this duty as my service to the Supreme Lord, Mukund. And I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. However, I'm not going to take credit, because there is always a superpower without whose kripa I cannot conclude or succeed in my ventures. So neither am I taking credit, nor am I giving the blame to anyone, but I am doing this as a servant, not as the owner of my body or my children or my qualification. I'm not an owner of this. I'm a servitor. So I'm doing this work as my service to the Supreme Lord. Then you are not attached to the results. Okay. A Krishna conscious person or unflinching devotee of the Lord should not be disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, nor be engaged in fruitive activities for promotion to the heavenly kingdom. Because the Vedas, flowery language of the Vedas means, I just gave you the example of Rig Ved. Flowery language means karma kand. ये व्रत रखो, ये उपवास करो, फलाने मंदिर में जाके इतने फूल चढ़ाओ, या इतना whatever. There are a lot of rituals given in our Rig Vedas, but they are ultimately what is their conclusion? Their conclusion is to give you sensual pleasure, and sensual pleasure means you are continuing to bob up and down in that huge ocean. It's not going to liberate you. It's not going to pull you out. No life jacket will be thrown to you when you are drowning in that big ocean out there with those sharks. And the Shastra have even explained Timingla fish. अभी तक हमारे साइंटिस्ट ने ये फिश ढूंढी नहीं है. शार्क तक ही है. Great wild whales and sharks. But there is a bigger whale named Timingla fish, and it is in such depths of the ocean कि अभी तक people have not come across. They can swallow an entire city. They are so big. Now, what to speak of whales? So the flowery language of the Vedas, if you want to follow, it's not going to save you from that ocean. It's just going to give you pleasure, sensual pleasure. What is sensual pleasure? Just to give you an idea again, this is a good example to visualize. Imagine that you are drowning in that ocean. पूरे नहीं डूबे हो, अभी भी आपका shoulder length, shoulder upwards, you're out. The rest of your body is inside. Anybody can grab your leg at any time, bite you, drag you inside. Anything can happen, right? And with you, your family, relatives, friends, everybody is also around you in the water. You know, and everybody's talking to each other and giving each other solace that don't worry, I'm also here. Look, I'm also bobbing up and down with you. Don't worry, I'm holding your hand. Nothing will happen to you, you know. And you can see far off your other friends and relatives. Everybody is around you in that water. And for some time, the sun comes out, a nice breeze starts flowing. So, and all your friends and your relatives and family members are also with you, and they start enjoying, oh, such a nice breeze today, you know. And the water is also warm. It is so comfortable. I'm feeling so nice on my skin. And look, some fresh fruits have started bobbing. I've got some fresh fruits on this. So you're eating. Temporarily, you forget your condition. You're actually in the ocean. But you start enjoying. You got some nice fresh fruits, a nice breeze. You're enjoying the pleasure of your skin, the pleasure of taste. You're enjoying the nice view and everything. And then when night falls and everything, you know, is again dark and gloomy, again you realize, oh, I'm still here in this water. I haven't come out. And there's nothing out there. There's no seatbelt. There's no ship coming to rescue me. There's nothing. There's no airlift. So the Rig Veda gives you these kind of sensual pleasures that keep you there, but they don't promise to pull you out from there. Only worship of Mukund will pull you out of there, where he comes on his Garud and he plucks you from the ocean. Wouldn't that be nice? Would you want to still continue being there, or get plucked by him out of that ocean forever? That should be the goal. We miss the goal, and we're just happy with the temporary relief from misery by following karmakanda, fruitive activities. At best, for promotion to the heavenly kingdom. Heavenly kingdom can be considered as maybe a raft on that ocean. Everybody is in the water. A few get to sit on maybe a nice raft. उनके लिए एक फट्टा आ गया लकड़ी का, या मे बी सोने का फट्टा बन के आ गया कि आप इस पे बैठ सकते हो. है वो भी ओशन में, and they're not going anywhere, but they get some VIP seating in the ocean. You don't have to be in the water all the time. You can be dry, and some clothes have been provided on that raft. That's heaven. But it's still in the ocean, and one big wave can anytime come and drown that raft, even if it's made of diamonds. And all the people sitting on that raft are again going to go under and get drowned. Would you still want to go? That's what the Vedas entice you with. Come. If you do this, if you chant these mantras and these prayers and you do this, then you will get a promotion to that golden raft floating there. And so everybody is holding each other's hands and swimming towards that golden raft, which is bobbing on the water. That's heaven. Would you want to? Is that intelligent? Is that permanent? Will you get freedom from or relief from getting out of the ocean? Okay. In Krishna consciousness, one comes directly into communion with Krishna. And thus all directions from Krishna may be understood in that transcendental state. One is sure to achieve results by such activities and attain conclusive knowledge. One has only to carry out the orders of Krishna or his representative, the spiritual master. If you are in Krishna consciousness, then the Chaitya Guru, the Paramatma in your heart, is going to give you the real guidance on how to get out of this illusion of the material world. So if you are connected with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra through your spiritual master, Krishna will give you direction to get out, and you will be plucked out of that ocean. So you don't really have to follow the karmakand rituals of the Vedas if you have caught the lotus feet of Mukunda through the Guru. Okay. Next verse, please.
अर्जुन उवाच स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थितधिः किं प्रभाषेत किम आसीत व्रजेत किम. Arjun said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk?
So, yeah, Sthita Pragya. Here comes the most important word. And the remaining verses from 54 to 72, Krishna is now only going to describe who a Sthita Pragya is. What are his characteristics? And let's take these questions. They may sound like very materialistic, childish questions, like something like Miss World. Oh, how does she walk? How does she talk? How do these actresses behave? These seem like that, these questions. How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is actually explaining the deep meaning behind these questions, because Arjun is not an ordinary person. If he has been chosen by Krishna to receive the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, definitely his intelligence is above average, and he's not ordinary. So what is the real meaning behind these questions that he has asked? Ka bhasha. Ka bhasha means What are the characteristics of a person such as Sthita Pragya person? This person who is bypassing all the karma kandi rituals of the Vedas and the Upanishads and is directly fixed on the goal of all the Vedas. He has understood the goal of the Vedas. How does such a person look? How does such a person behave? He is curious to know, okay, if I don't have to do all these things, I don't have to, and I just have to do my duty and not be attached to the results. And how does such a person look like? This is 54. Yeah. Kim Prabhashat. Kim Prabhashat means what kind of, what is his manner of speech? What are the kinds of ideas he's talking about? What is his consciousness? What does he speak? What does such a person speak about? Kim Asit. Kim Asit means how does such a person, the literal meaning of Kim Asit is does remain still. What is the meaning of that? How does he restrain his senses? The direct translation is Kim is how, Asit means does remain still. So does remain still actually implies to how does he control his senses? How is he able to indriyani, control all his indriya? And Kim Vrajet. Okay, once he's controlled his senses, how does he engage them? Where does he engage them? In what activities does he engage them? So such a Sthita Pragya, can you please describe his ka bhasha, his characteristics, his persona, his personality? What does he do? What kind of personalities does he have? What kind of characteristics does he have? This is Arjun's very intelligent question. This has actually covered everything, and that's why Krishna took so many verses to cover this question. It's not ordinary questions. These are not ordinary questions. As there are symptoms for each and every man in terms of his particular situation, isn't it? A drunkard has some symptoms. You can immediately make out, acha, ye drunkard hai. A drug addict has some bodily functions, has some symptoms, the way he talks, the way he behaves. You can immediately make out he's a drug addict. Similarly, an angry person, people who are very angry or angry very quickly, they have some symptoms, isn't it? You can easily make out, oh, this person is short-tempered, you can make out. Similarly, an envious person, you can make out from their symptoms, their behavior, that this person is extremely jealous and envious. Similarly, a Krishna conscious person has some symptoms. There are some attributes about him that are different from the rest. What are those? He has a particular nature of talking, walking, thinking, and feeling. As a rich man has his symptoms, because of that he's known as a rich man. Rich people have a very different body language compared to the people living in slums, isn't it? Slum people have a very different body language. They're a very different persona. Similarly, the rich, naturally, they don't have to work very hard to tell the people, I'm rich, I'm rich. Their general persona and personality can convey that they have had a very, very rich, affluent lifestyle. Similarly, a Krishna conscious person or a diseased person has his symptoms. As a learned man has his symptoms, so a man in transcendental consciousness of Krishna has specific symptoms in various dealings, in the way he deals with people. One can know his specific symptoms from the Bhagavad Gita. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks. For speech is the most important quality of any man. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak. So many people, they look so impressive in their photos on magazines. And then ek interview unka dekh lo, and then all your impression about them is washed off. Oh, is this the real person? Similarly, and a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals his real self at once. Similarly, the immediate symptom of a Krishna conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow as stated below. How can a person speak of Krishna all the time? I mean, it may seem very simple. Oh, we just have to talk about Krishna. I can do that. I can anytime do that and convey to people that I am a Krishna conscious person. Well, try it. You can't go beyond 2 minutes, maybe 5, max 10. You really cannot think, talk, feel Krishna all the time unless you are completely surrendered to him or you are devoted to him. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, to explain the symptoms of a Krishna conscious person, he says, like a married woman, if she is involved in an extramarital affair, supposing she's having an affair with another man, how does she behave at home? If she wants to, of course, she wants to hide that she's seeing another man, isn't it? But at the same time, she wants to enjoy the extramarital affair. What does she do? She does her housework exemplarily. She will do all her chores even more than a wife who does not have an extramarital affair. Why? So that the husband does not suspect. But at the same time, whatever she is doing, cooking, cleaning, looking after kids, or serving her husband, in her heart, she's always thinking about, when can I meet him? How can I meet him? Where shall I find the time to meet him? She's scheming and planning all the time, isn't it? This is how a Krishna conscious person thinks, feels, lives, and behaves. Outwardly, he's doing all the duties, but inwardly, how can I meet Krishna? You know, where can I find time to read more about him? Where can I find time to chant his glories? Where can I find time to meet other lovers of Krishna? When can I find time to hear about him? When can I find time to understand how to serve him? And while doing her chores and other duties, she's all the time, he or she is meditating on how can they hear, talk, speak, learn more and more about Krishna. This is the symptom of a Krishna conscious person. It's not easy unless you really have that burning fire in you. And you can understand this by your own personal occupation. If you're an engineer, you're all the time obsessed about machines. If you have found some idea, you're all the time thinking, how can you build that machine, to do that particular thing. If you're a doctor and you have got a difficult case, you're all the time thinking how to solve that patient's problem, how to figure out what he's doing. You are so attached to your work. You're so engrossed, you're so in love with your occupation. Nobody has to teach you. You are all the time meditating on your particular. If you love cooking, you're all the time thinking of what new recipe can I look for, what new ingredients can I get to know, how can I mix and match this and cook this. Nobody has to teach you that. It's naturally, your obsession. You'll have to drive, you'll have to shop, you'll just find opportunities to go out there and shop, isn't it? So that taste naturally comes to a Krishna conscious person. He just can't help but connect everything of his life to Krishna. Can't help but talk about him. Why? Because he's reading about him all the time. He's hearing about him all the time. He's talking about him all the time. Such a person is a Sthita Pragya. And the Sthita Pragya is much more than that, actually, not just that, because we are talking about ordinary, normal, happy circumstances. And then what happens when suddenly a big tragedy happens, or there is a great calamity? What does a Sthita Pragya person do? He doesn't just simply forget, oh, now my Krishna consciousness is over. Right now, I am in this situation. I have to now do other things. Oh, again, he does not forget Krishna. And he connects that misfortune and tragedy also to Krishna consciousness. Last verse, Vishali.
Yeah. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prajahati Yata Kaman Sarvan Parthamanogatam Atmanyevatmana Tushtaha Sthita Prajnastadochyate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness.
Consciousness. Yeah. So the Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service has all the good qualities of the great sages, whereas a person who is not so transcendently situated has no good qualification, because he's sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoctions. Mental concoction means speculation. I'll give you an example of that. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental concoction. I'll give you an example of why speculation is so dangerous and why speculation is bad. People think it's just a little harmful. So what? So, you know what philosophers do? Supposing a philosopher is sitting and he's observing that there is a tree, a nice, beautiful branch of a tree, and a bird comes and sits on that branch, and there is a ripe fruit on that branch. That fruit is so ripe that it can fall any minute. But it so happened that when the bird came and sat on the branch, at that time the fruit fell. So the philosopher started thinking that is there a connection between these two? That the ripened fruit fell and the bird came and sat on the tree. So then he starts speculating. Okay, so this means that because the bird came and sat, then because of the weight of the bird, the tree shook and the ripened fruit fell. He said no, but it also could mean that the ripened fruit, the smell of the ripened fruit attracted the bird, and that's how the bird came and sat and the fruit fell. And he says, no, it could also mean that the tree itself there was some tremors under the earth, and the tree started shaking and the fruit started falling, and seeing that, the bird came and sat to take shelter on the tree because it got scared with all the tremors. No, but it also could mean that the air above the tree suddenly got heavier and warmer, and the sun came out. So the bird came to take shelter of take shade of the tree, and the fruit, because of that increase in heat, ripened and fell. Now, which of these is true? And is there any end to this speculation? You make another philosopher sit there, he will come with 20 other permutations and combinations. And they can keep on discussing this for their entire life without reaching a conclusion. So they have collectively wasted each other's time and everybody's time and confused everyone more and not reached any conclusion. But a Sthita Pragya will come, open the scriptures, understand how the creation works and how it works, comes to the conclusion, takes advantage of the situation and leaves. So mental concoctions without any adhar, without any reference to Shastra is dangerous. Extremely dangerous, because you come to all kinds of wrong conclusions. And yet, you're still in that dense forest of illusion, because you will keep on getting more and more ideas. So you will not conclude. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped. And this is how we are engaging in our life of sensual pleasures. We continue to understand how we have to follow religion or how we have to do puja by our own mental speculation without following any guidance from the Shastra. And therefore, we all end up in all different kinds of situations, and yet we do not get, our mind does not get relief from the miseries of happiness and pain and distress. Because it's artificially, we are just doing a mental concoction. But if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation. For this devotional service will instantly help one onto the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Again, this position, this understanding that I am not the enjoyer, but I am here to give enjoyment to my Maker. This understanding comes only from the scriptures. And such a sthita pragya has no sense desire resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. So we have a choice. All of us have a choice. What is that? We can either have infinite longings or we can long for the infinite. This is Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's lecture. Choice is yours. You can have infinite longings like that speculator. You know, you can become a philosopher of life and have, okay, let me do this, let me do that. If I do this, this will happen. If I don't do that, automatically this will be taken care of. Or you can long for the infinite. And the intelligent long for the infinite. And the infinite residing in their heart guides them to the right conclusion of all their questions. And it is 5 o'clock and we finished 5 verses. Okay. So, everybody has jotted and jotted and jotted. Any questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Neelam.
Yeah, could you just
हाँ जी, आपकी आवाज मुझे आ नहीं रही clean.
I'm just saying, could you just repeat the last part that the intelligent long for infinite, which is residing in our heart. So, what did you say after that? Could you just repeat that?
Long for the who is residing in their heart, and as their Paramatma inside or the Chaitya Guru inside, he guides him how to become a Sthita Pragya, and thereby such a person is actually really happy. He's saved from all the distresses of this life. You will find such people always happy, not disturbed by happiness and distress, because they have understood the conclusion of the Vedas. They're not simply following the rituals and the karma kand of the Vedas mindlessly, but they have understood the conclusion of the Vedas, that they are servitors. So the real joy and the real happiness is in becoming a servant, not the master. This is the conclusion, and this is Krishna consciousness. As long as you are always thinking of how can I serve, you're happy. The moment you start thinking, how can I serve myself to become happy, you are in for big trouble. Because there's no end to the service that you can render to yourself, and you will still not be happy.
I also want to ask something, Anita.
Varsha, Hanji.
Yeah.
Yes, Varsha.
I've asked this earlier also, but again, I'm very confused about this karma kand thing. At one point, हम सब जगह, even in ISKCON and everywhere, we are doing a lot of karma kand.
हाँ.
So is it not needed then?
So we are talking about Krishna conscious rituals and activities. As I explained last time to you, we are talking about, मैंने जो ऋग्वेद के कर्मकांड की बात की थी, उसमें आप result expect क्या कर रहे हो from that कर्मकांड? If you are doing some rituals to enjoy some pleasures here, then probably you are only, like I explained to you, that example that we are all thrown into the ocean and we are all bobbing there up and down. और बीच में अगर आपको कुछ खाने पीने के लिए चाहिए और आपको कुछ arrangement मिल गया through some कर्मकांडी activities, you are still in the ocean, still suffering there under that hot sun. That sun is burning you sometimes, the rain is sometimes drowning you. But Krishna conscious rituals attached to Krishna conscious activities is not karmakand, because there your goal is to serve Krishna and please Krishna. So जो आप लड्डू गोपाल की सेवा कर रहे हैं, आप उनकी प्रसन्नता के लिए उनकी सेवा कर रहे हैं, isn't it? That should be the goal. That I am right now, I'm reading this Bhagavad Gita, I'm trying to understand Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because I want to know who the spiritual, who is the supreme personality of Godhead, who is God, what is his personality, what is my relationship with him, and what am I supposed to do to please him. But if you're doing this puja part for some pratishtha, for some, just to show that, oh, I'm such a religious person, then that's karmakand. Your goal is not to get out of here. So any karmakand, any ritual, when you're going to Devi Devtas or Pitron ki puja kar rahe ho for some gain, कि मेरा business बचा रहे, that's karmakand. लेकिन अगर आप कृष्ण की पूजा कर रहे हैं by any kind of rituals, then that is nishkam karma yoga. Was that helpful, or it's more, I've confused you more? You are muted.
It is helpful, definitely, but not very convincing, because even when we are doing karma kand for Krishna, many of us, when we do it, we expect Krishna theek karenge, Krishna will take care of our worries, This is the way we think. Ki things will be okay, Krishna hai now.
So, correct.
We are expecting that.
So you are relying on Krishna, correct? That's surrender. That's a way to surrender to him. That you are relying on him to help you out of your current troubles. Surely you will go to your parents for help. As a child, we are his children. So if you're going to him as our parent, there's nothing wrong in that. Children will go to parents only to ask for help. But as long as you're not doing it, you're following the Shastra, you're following the Gita, or you're trying to understand it from those who are following it, and you are doing those rituals as per the Shastra, then you are taking baby steps in Krishna consciousness, rather than doing your puja according to your own mental speculation and according to what's convenient to you. हम तो भाई इतना ही करेंगे, बाकी तो हमसे होता नहीं. So you try to follow all the scriptures as enjoined by the scriptures. For example, again I'll give you example of a doctor, क्योंकि अभी मेरे सामने अभी मीतू आ गई, so मेरे को doctor का example आ गया. Supposing you are a doctor and you have you go to the medical college, you are working as an apprentice under the senior doctors. You will heed their advice, you will stand under them, with them. You will follow their instructions when they tell you, aise karo, aise mat karo, aise incision karo. And this is how you do it, right? You will not stand there and say, no, इसमें से जो मुझे ठीक लगता है मैं वही करूंगी, बाकी मेरे लिए मुश्किल है वो आप कर लेना, मेरे से तो नहीं है. No, as a doctor, you have to follow all the instructions given to you by the senior doctor. Only then will you be allowed to touch a patient. You will follow all the instructions ditto, because you are playing with lives, isn't it? You cannot leave out half instructions and keep some and leave out the others, right? Am I right, Meetu? You have to follow exactly as they say. उसी तरह जब आप भगवत गीता पढ़नी शुरू करते हैं, then you follow exactly all the things that Krishna is saying and taking you through. You cannot pick and choose by mental speculation that no, I will, this part I find convenient and nice and enjoyable, so I'll follow this part. But you follow all the instructions as given in the Bhagavad Gita, and you follow as per the Bhagavad Gita, not as per what my relative said or my neighbor said or so and so said. You follow a standard authority. Is that okay, Varsha?
Definitely clearer now, much better.
No mental speculation, no manufacturing or concocting your own ways. So as Marwadis, you are lucky that you are already in a culture that is Krishna conscious. So many things you have been just gift wrapped and given as a culture of the family. But you can modify and fine tune that now with reference to what you are reading in the Bhagavad Gita. You need to understand the science behind what you're doing. You need to understand the logic behind it. Yes, Meetu.
I need to have, I just want to add another important aspect. Maybe you can add a line or two of that. So, matlab, you in between you said a sentence that why are we reading the Gita? Of course, जो भी हमारा अपना religious beliefs है, जो हमारे sentiments हैं, हमारे actual हम हिंदू धर्म को मानते हुए भी sometimes we need not be followers of God. Followers of gods as we know them. Of course, I do believe in the supreme being, but why I am reading the Gita? I have been long thinking about reading, and it was just by chance that one day you just showed me the way. I enjoy each and every class that I am in, but why I am reading the Gita is not to imbibe some way of living. I think it also helps us to be at peace with ourselves, with our own way of life, and definitely tone us down or tone us up, whichever is required. Presently, at this stage, I am not. I would not say that I am a. I am a. I do believe in the supreme being, but step by step, maybe I am not Krishna conscious. चाहे वो कितना ही मेरे सिस्टम में बचपन से डाला गया हो या नहीं डाला गया हो, I think because sometimes with the, like you earlier also I have missed a few classes, verse by verse it definitely helps us to encounter our own internal self.
Yeah.
So I think वो एक मेरे लिए गीता पढ़ने का वो एक aspect है that somewhere I don't want to wait till the end of my life to understand what all of this is all about. So I just wanted your version on that.
Yeah, so what you're saying is absolutely right. See, spiritual life starts with Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Jigyasa means curiosity. And you are here because of your curiosity. And all of us started with that. You have to first have some curiosity to know about the Supreme Being, to know about what's written in this law book, standard law book of the world. And spiritual life starts from there. So, and that is the right way. And these are the eligible people who come to understand the Bhagavad Gita. There has to be some curiosity to know what is there. Like you said, don't want to wait till the end of life, जब मुंह में दांत नहीं होंगे, आंखों से दिख नहीं रहा होगा, or when we are too old to understand anything is not the right time to have curiosity for something. But this young age is the right time to have curiosity to understand what's all there. That's why you are here. And that's the right way to do it. Well, these women are almost 3 years old. So that's why we are talking about Krishna consciousness so easily, because we all started this way 3 years back.
Yes, because somewhere during your discussion, I feel that okay, I am able to relate to what you're saying, but why don't I
Take it.
have that?
Take your time. There is no rush, no hurry. Just know that
I
this group
understand.
is that this group is 3 years old. But you take your time. Just go with the flow and soak in all the information as it comes, verse by verse. There is no competition with anyone but your own self. Hai na? Yeah. We also had Vishakha today. She's there. Vishakha, was the class okay for you?
Yes, Vanita, it was very, very nice. Yeah, even as said by me too, I'm also just listening and trying to understand. I'm at that stage yet.
Sure. Yeah. So please feel free if you have any questions. I can see. So या तो सबको सब कुछ समझ में आ गया, या everything went overhead. दो ही चीजें हो सकती हैं if there are no questions. Either you understood everything, or whatever I said today was so it was lacking in so many ways that nothing went in. If everybody has understood everything, we can do our closing prayers. Or if you want, we can do a
I
short
have
quiz.
one question.
Who's that? Sorry.
Bharti, yeah.
हाँ Bharti, yes. Hari bol.
In text 51, you said Vaikuntha wo jo line thi. Vaikuntha means no miseries.
Yeah. Why means no and Kunt means misery.
And you said one other word also. What was that?
Kuntha. Kuntha.
No. Kuntha.
Why निकाल दो, सिर्फ कुंठ बचा. And we are in कुंठ लोक. ये जो मात लोक
Okay.
है, ये कुंठ लोक है. It's a loke of miseries. So even this one word itself was such a revelation to me when I heard it for the first time, that oh, I never knew that we are living in Kunt Lok. So what is a big surprise that you find miseries at every step? आप एड्रेस ही आपने रेंट ही ऐसा घर किया है जिसका बाहर नेम प्लेट है misery world. Then why are you always complaining? Oh, I got misery. you have taken residence only in such a place. So expect it to be there all the time and everywhere. This is the great advantage of reading scriptures. Otherwise, इससे पहले तो किसी ने मुझे नहीं बताया था that हम कुछ लोक में रहते हैं और ये दुखालयम है. इस actually पृथ्वी लोक का नाम दुखालयम है. But nobody comes here. I mean, imagine आपको अगर घर ब्यूटीफुल मैंशन कोई दिखा दे लेकिन बाहर लिख दे के there's no guarantee inside. ये you will get birth age, birth, death, old age and disease यहाँ आपको जरूर मिलेंगे. और ये दुखालयम है, तो आप रेंट करोगे वो घर कभी भी? नेवर. नेवर. लेकिन हमने किया और अब अंदर आके we keep complaining. It's out of ignorance. People don't know. But the moment somebody tells you, सब शांत हो जाते हैं फिर एकदम से. Oh, okay. Then at least these complaints stop coming. And then the next intelligent question is, okay, how do we make a solution now? अब rent तो कर लिया घर. Now we have to expect these things and they are there in every kamra that we go. अब इसका निवारण क्या है? करना क्या है? That's how Bhagavad Gita comes to the rescue. This is what Arjun is asking, no? So Sthita Pragya tak hum aa gaye hain. And now Krishna till 71 is going to explain to him who a Sthita Pragya Muni is. Okay, there are all kinds of munis. Muni does not automatically mean liberated person. A Sthita Pragya Muni is a liberated person. Otherwise, munis are mental speculators also. There were plenty. बड़े बड़े भाष्यस लिखे, टीकाएं लिखी उन्होंने on all kinds of mental speculation, disregarding what the Shastra has written. ठीक है? Okay, so should we do a short quiz just to revise what we've done? Chapter 2. What time is it? No, I think we'll do the quiz next time. It's already 5:30. We'll do the closing prayers. Who would repeat after me? Preeti? Hari bol, Preeti. Okay, Anu. आप बोलिए. एकम शास्त्रम
एकं शास्त्रं
देवकी पुत्र गीतम
देवकी पुत्र गीतम्
एको देवो
एको देवो
देवकी पुत्र एव
देवकी पुत्र एव
एको मंत्रस
एको मन्त्रस्
तस्य नामानि यानि
तस्य नामानि यानि
कर्मापि एकम
कर्मापि एकं
तस्य देवस्य सेवा
तस्य देवस्य सेवा
त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव
त्वमेव माताश्च पिता त्वमेव
त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव
त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव
त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव
त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव
त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव
त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
हरये परमात्मने
हरये परमात्मने
प्रणतक्लेशनाशाय
प्रणतक्लेशनाशाय
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
देवकी नन्दनाय च
देवकी नन्दनाय च
नन्दगोपकुमाराय
नन्दगोपकुमाराय
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
वसुदेवं सुतं देवं
वसुदेवं सुतं देवं
कंसचाणूरमर्दनं
तं स चाणूरमर्दनं
देवकी परमानन्दं
देवकी परमानन्दं
कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं
कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं
कात्यायनी महामाये
कात्यायनी महामाये
महायोगिनी अधीश्वरी
महायोगिनी अधीश्वरी
नन्दगोपसुतं देवी
नन्दगोपं सुतं देवी
पतिं मे कुरुते नमः
पतिं मे कुरुते नमः
श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम
श्रीकृष्णं शरणं मम
दासोऽहं कृष्ण तवास्मि
दासोऽहं कृष्ण तवास्मि
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय
जय गुरु महाराज की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि 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 बोल जय जय श्री राधे
श्याम